What's good, family? So smash the like button, subscribe, and lick off the bell. So we got some more breaking news right now. Your man's Deontay Wilder has unfortunately leaked some information regarding his future, and it's bad news. Essentially, Deontay Wilder is hinting that retirement is on the cards in a 50-50 kind of situation right now. These are his quotes. These are the leaked quotes. I have mixed feelings at the moment because ultimately I have accomplished all my goals in this sport. I told my daughter when she was 1 that I'd be champion and I'd be able to support her beyond her belief. I've done things that I promised my daughter already. There's a lot of things that I've accomplished that I feel I don't have to prove anything to anyone anymore because I've already proven it to myself. Should I push forward? Should I give it a go one more time? Or should I just retire and focus on other things that I already have? Other things that I want to get into. So there you go then. Now, people could say, oh, you're blowing this up and whatever else, rah, 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 rah. But listen, there's an old saying, I'm not sure who said it, it might have been Dana White, but Dana White said something along the lines of, if a fighter is even thinking of retirement, then they should do it. And Dana really is one of the only promoters who I've seen really embrace that. A lot of people say it, but then they'll stay milking, if that makes sense. Dana genuinely, I've never really seen him try and milk a fighter. For example, Habib. I mean, for me, in my opinion, I think Habib was prime for milking, but genuinely, Dana just moves on, which is very rare in this game. Most of the time, when people get a cash cow like Don King, they squeeze the life juices out of them. Or even Eddie Hearn, to be honest. Yeah, the way Eddie Hearn is with Anthony Johnston right now. Now, I'm not saying it's Eddie Hearn driving this shit, but he should be more like Dana White in this regard, in my opinion. He should be telling the public and Anthony Johnston, listen, Anthony Johnston, if you haven't got that fight in you, yeah, if you think every fight's a sparring session where you're glad for getting 12 rounds in, then I'm not here to put them kind of shows on. I'm not here just to milk the fans for milking fans' sake. You're either going to give us that real soul and passion, because look at the UFC. How many times really do we see fighters in the UFC go in there and just do 5 rounds just for the sake of doing 5 rounds? You don't really see that. You get a lot more passion. The standard for passion is a lot higher in the UFC. In boxing, half the time it's just a whole fanning around, isn't it? Let's be real now. I mean, look at Tank Davis versus Isaac Cruz. Tank Davis at one point in time was one of the most ferocious punchers in boxing, and he's fanning around for 12 rounds. This is where the sport's gone, people. There's no shame. In fact, because of the Floyd Mayweather effect, people actually try and get sucked off for dancing around. Oh, yeah, I'm like Floyd. Yeah, people should... What? Floyd was boring, people. Honestly, I wouldn't be surprised yet if the numbers that Floyd allegedly was doing was fake. I don't know why people was paying for it, genuinely. I'm not sure whether it was because he was the only big name at the time. That may have been a factor, because at the time, people, remember, heavyweights were down bad. So there was a huge gap in the market. From 2005, when Lennox left, to 2015, there was naffle going on. And that's when Mayweather came along. Yeah, that's when Mayweather's little 4-foot-looking ass came along and ruined the sport forever. Because he ain't got no power. People blame, oh, well, his hands hurt. Listen, if your hands hurt, retire. Oops. Like I said, if you can't punch, imagine that. That's like having no feet and trying to run. Oh, my feet hurt, but I'm going to run anyway. Well, isn't it? Imagine that. Imagine Usain Bolt coming out, or Mo Farah coming out, oh, my feet are hurting, but I'm going to run anyway. Who doing that? People who want to milk the sport. People who ain't got no respect for the sport. But anyway, like I said, this is all relevant to Deontay Wilder, because if you're thinking about it, don't forget, people, when Wilder, I've never really heard of Wilder. Wilder isn't, or Wilder hasn't been someone like Tyson Fury. Tyson Fury's been battling retirement since about 2009. I mean, genuinely, I remember back in 2013 when David Haye pulled out. Tyson Fury was saying about retirement back then. Every year, Tyson, in fact, every month, Tyson Fury talking to some extent about retirement. But Deontay Wilder, I've never really heard him mention it at all, to be honest with you. Now, after he lost, there was kind of speculation, but out of his own mouth, this is the first time I've heard it. And it's quite a shame, because I do believe, well, I mean, his skills are primitive, but I do believe he's got something left. I want to see the Ruiz fight. I want to see how much he's really got. But then again, did he give all he had against Fury? That is a high possibility, people. There's a high possibility Deontay Wilder really did give all he had. And in terms of his heart box, he certainly gave all of his heart, but I'm sure if he had any more skills, or if he had any more cardio, he would have brought them out. But that said, I mean, so yeah, bottom line for me is, if he's thinking about it, he should go. That's what I think, because no one wants to see people milking it for the sake of it. And also, even for the fighter's sake, for everyone's sake, it's better if you're half in, half out, and don't bother, because you ruin your own legacy. Look at Anthony Johnston. Anthony Johnston should have retired. I think after the Ruiz rematch, he should have said, you know what? That rematch has proven that I ain't really got it like that, because I got smoked in the first fight, and I didn't have no will to go in there and try and do him worse, if that makes sense. At least when Wilder lost to Fury, he lost. Every shot Wilder threw, his whole life was in it, if that makes sense. That's how he lost. He didn't lose with his backside twitching. He lost all in, and I can respect that. Got no skills, but the fact is, he had zero skills but 100% effort, and that's all you can ask for as a fan. I lost money on that fight as well. But did you hear me once moan? No, because I knew he had no skills before the fight. I can't blame him for having no skills. That's not his fault. And I can't blame him for going in there and giving it all he had. That's all we can ask for as punters or as fans. So what I'm saying is, with Anthony Johnston, he should have clocked on after the Ruiz fight that he ain't got the same minerals he used to have. Yeah? And quit whilst he was ahead. Or quit whilst he wasn't ahead. After the Ruiz rematch, he wasn't ahead at that point. He was break even. His legacy was intact. He could have gone out. Yeah, I retired on top. Fury and Wilder didn't want to fight me. Because remember, at that point in time, all them narratives were still in check. Yeah, Fury and Wilder ducking was still relevant. He could have gone out on top and left questions. Now the way him and Eddie Hearn are going, there ain't going to be no questions. You're going to be known as the bottom. You're going to be known as a guy who everyone who is anyone could have a go on quick. Yeah? You're going to be known as the man who was sloppy thirds, or you're going to be known as the man who was up for taking sloppy thirds. Yeah? You're going to be known as the man who was up for getting rode 4, 5, 6 times by a whole bag of men. A whole bag of big burly men. That's your legacy. So YB, why are you talking about Anthony Johnston when it's a Deontay Wilder video? Well, I'm saying this as a caution of warning to Wilder and all of his fans. Right now, Wilder arguably is peak pinnacle. He's kind of peak respect. Now, again, I do think he can potentially do something against Ruiz. What I'm saying is, only take the Ruiz fight if you feel like you've got a rock hard lob on for him. Yeah? You've really got to feel like you've got something to prove. Deontay Wilder said here, I ain't really got nothing to prove. If you feel like that, then don't take the fight. Because the mindset I'd want to hear for Deontay Wilder is that he feels like he's got something left. He feels like there's something sweet out there for him. If you don't feel like that, then listen, it's 2021. What's most likely? Most likely Wilder is going to carry on and soak the money up. That's what's most likely. But I'm talking from a purist point of view. And from a legacy point of view. Because right now, Deontay Wilder can go out as the man who only ever lost to Tyson Fury. Which may end up being a very prestigious thing, if that makes sense. If Fury goes on to beat everyone, that'll be very prestigious. If Wilder hangs around, God knows, he might end up like Anthony Johnston. Although I'm not sure about that, because to be fair to Wilder hasn't shown us that he's completely floppy yet. Anyway. I'd like to see Wilder carry on if he wants to commit. I think there's interesting fights. I mean, there's massive fights out there. The Ruiz fight's massive, I feel. Dillian White fight's massive. The Johnston fight, well, it's all right, isn't it? But there's still big fights. But is it too much to ask these days for two men in these big fights to be hungry for it? Which, to be fair, apart from Johnston, Tyson Fury's hungry, Deontay Wilder's hungry, Dillian White's relatively hungry. So apart from Johnston, everyone else is all right. Andy Ruiz, I'd say. Andy Ruiz is a bit floppy. He's a bit Johnston-ish. I mean, Andy Ruiz in the Ruiz rematch, he could have committed a lot more, I feel. Rather than pointing at the floor, he could have kind of walked through the fire, I feel. Andy Ruiz was happy just to follow AJ around the ring. For example, how many people, were able to outbox Mike Tyson or outbox Alvarez? Because Alvarez doesn't have quick feet. Mike Tyson actually had quick feet. So that's not a fair comparison, but Alvarez plods around the ring. Alvarez doesn't explode with his feet to cut the ring off. He just walks around the ring. So the fact of the matter is, people, Andy Ruiz could have cut the ring off and gone to work, but he was happy not to take no risk, not to get hurt, not to kind of suck it up and go walk through the fire. He was happy just to follow AJ around the ring and lose on points. That's the bottom line there. And then we saw the Areola fight. The Areola fight that showed that Andy Ruiz is the biggest Buster Douglas in the last 30 years. He ain't got no substance. He ain't got no shame. No shame and no substance. Happy to go in there and just go for the motions. So, let's see anyway. I'm sure that, for now at least, we have to give Wilder credit. Wilder hasn't exposed himself yet, but all I'm saying is the things I'm hearing here ain't too... I don't like what I'm hearing, basically. And you got Shelley Winkle talking about, oh, he's coming back. Listen, Shelley, you ain't got no fighters. You're trying to milk. Let the man go if you don't want to be there. Yeah, hopefully he's made smart investments. And, luckily Shelley's fixed him up with some of his friends. Some of them 539 friends. And he's got his money niced.